Hello. Alright, so some people were complaining about the audio yesterday. So I'm going to try to turn it up a little bit. Hopefully this works out better for you guys. So before we get into the semifinal matches, oh my god, so much brightness. That's because of the light from the screen. Let's see what we can do about that. Just need some more natural light. Nope, now everything is just brighter. Okay, well, we're going to deal with it. Let's just hope this is okay. So let's go over the games from today real quick. So advancing to the semifinals, we have Genji and JDG from Group B. On day 2, we had Genji beating JDG in the opening match. I thought that Genji definitely had a shot. And I told you guys that they had a chance. DRX against Invictus Gaming. I did like the DRX side, I believe. DragonX versus Genji. We knew that DragonX had the advantage over Genji during the regular season. I thought that was kind of not the best reason to pick them, but they ended up taking the win. JDG beat Invictus Gaming. Everybody beat Invictus Gaming. Genji also beat Invictus Gaming. I had some people ask me why they were playing so poorly, and I mean, in one game sample sizes, their volatile playstyle, it'll make them look really good or it'll make them look really bad. So we knew that we knew they had a wide range of outcomes to begin with, so nothing too shocking. Nothing too shocking there. Now, DragonX should have beat JDG. Anybody who watched that game, anybody who watched that game and wanted DragonX to win is probably furious. They just threw away the game. Against Genji, it was a very close match. Genji ended the game off of one team fight because the game had gone on for so long, and they had a big enough wave to kind of just end the game. So that kind of thing happens. That's not DragonX playing very poorly or Genji playing incredibly well. It was just a very close match. They were both kind of tentative in terms of how they were approaching the game. It happens. No one really outplayed each other too significantly in that game. And then DragonX against JDG. DragonX lost again with like a 5,000 gold lead. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and I explained that I think the main problem with DragonX is that they kind of opted into this mentality that they were going to get outscaled. Personally, I think that Deft built the champion incorrectly. He was playing Kalista, and if you're playing a Kalista against Leona, Ezreal, Lee Sin, and Mordekaiser, they're all building armor. You need to build a Mortal Reminder or Lord Dominic's Regards. They both have the extra armor shred, and the team fights, in order for you to win them, they'll probably have to go front to back. So if you have Set as one of your primary engages, you have a Kali, like, you need to get one of the tanks, bring them to the rest of your team, shred the tank, create an unfair fight. They also had this stupid thing where, like, they would get to the second or third dragon, and then they would let the other team kind of contest it outright, instead of using wave manipulation and stuff like that to force a better fight for themselves. Now, like, obviously, I'm not saying that, like, it's impossible for JDG to get a dragon there, but DragonX needs to make it as difficult as possible for them to be able to contest. And if they're walking through choke points to contest, you need to be able to fight them. You have a Kalista that can shred these tanks. It just didn't really make a lot of sense. So I think that there were a lot of mistakes that they made in that situation. I think this kind of group stage highlights a lot of the problems that JDG has, and they're able to pull out these games, which is only a benefit to their team. But they get into these bad spots, and they cannot continue winning this many close games in a row, because they're not significantly better than these other teams. They're just on the right side of variance right now. It's very similar to football, where you'll have like a couple of really strong teams and then a few other teams that have extremely high turnover differentials. You cannot rely on turnovers to win you games in the NFL. Like, obviously, the teams that win generally have more turnovers. Some of those are forced. Some of them are just mistakes by the other team. A lot of the wins that JDG has comes from quote-unquote turnovers that they don't cause. They just fall into their lap. Now you have to be in a position, and the game has to be close enough for you to capitalize on that. So that's something to like help your perception of JDG, but there's no reason to think that they can continue playing these close matches and that variance isn't going to start to bite them. There's just no logical explanation for that, because like I said, they are not that much. They are not significantly outplaying their opponents. It's just pretty frustrating to watch, because basically what this means is that the people who are continuously saying that JDG is like unbeatable or the best team or like these kinds of things, it's just not true. They have chances to win the games, and they're a solid team, but they are not at such a talent discrepancy with these other teams that we should just expect them to win every match. So with that being said, let's get into the semifinals. So in the semifinals, we have JDG against FPX. This is going to be a rematch of their semifinals. In the semifinals, JDG beat FPX 3-0. Another thing to note about the semifinals is that the first game is going to be blind pick. So blind pick is not going to give either team an advantage. The difficulty of projecting which team would get an advantage in that kind of situation, there's no way to give yourself any degree of certainty about what team would benefit from it more. So I can kind of talk through it a little bit in each of the matchups, but I'm not going to pretend like one of these teams has an inherent advantage in a blind pick game. If anything, it would give the advantage to the red side team. Actually, no, there's just no real advantage. Eliminating the draft should be a benefit for the red side team. But like there's no real like logic in the blind pick scenario. Like you need to draft a team that is either very aggressive and takes a lot of risks and can be punished, or you need to pick something that's highly conservative and can adapt to what the enemy team is playing. So it's tough to say that one of those teams will have an advantage. So I would have to think that FPX. I think FPX with Doinby is one of the only spots that I think could be. That's one of the only spots that I think an argument could be made for a blind pick advantage, because if Doinby wants to play a split pushing champion that can also come to some team fights, then I think that forces JDG to pick a champion that can deal with a split pusher. So if FPX has a specific kind of macro game they want to play, I could see that being very good for a blind pick situation. JDG, on the other hand, typically the way that their games go is very like early game and mid game focused in terms of contesting objectives, having the continuous gank pressure in top lane, because Zoom and Kanavi are always looking for ways to start creating a lead for their team, and are very successful at doing it in general. So I think the most interesting thing in this is going to be how do these two teams draft in the blind pick, and what objectives are they prioritizing? Because JDG in a couple of these games have given up Dragon priority, not placed a high value on it, and then have just decided to fight the other team, and they've been doing this from a disadvantage in terms of gold. So this kind of, if this is just their style that they're going to play, I would happily take FPX in this match. I think that both teams are going to have if the series goes 5 games, both teams would have two games on red, 2 games on blue. I'm assuming that's how they're doing it, or at least the option. So teams will have their choice of side selection. I'm assuming JDG is the higher seed, but this tournament hasn't been great about giving out the specific schedules and like making it easy for us to find. There's no one really like taking the information given from the mid-season cup officials and then like digesting it and pushing it out to an English audience that I've seen that's doing it reliably. So let's just get into the betting lines. I don't think there's anything on DraftKings yet, but look out for a DFS Bachelor video later. I'll also be on SBR Picks again today. So Fun Plus Phoenix and JDG. We have FPX is plus 142, JDG minus 179. I found this line a little while ago, and it was a little bit different. So I think a little bit of money is coming in on FPX. So in this spot, I'm definitely gonna be on FPX. But let's take a look at their match history. So Fun Plus Phoenix against JDG. Fun Plus Phoenix gave up Graves. That was a huge mistake in that matchup. They realized that and started banning it out. The match history is not here for the mid-season cup, so let's get the match history. Okay, so this isn't the most helpful information. So let's look at the bans. So we had Tion play Kindred. That's a good sign. That was the game against T1. T1's a kind of team that can punish Kindred because they have very good coordination. Then we had another Kindred game from Tion, and then we had a Graves game from Tion. So right now, something clicked with Fun Plus Phoenix. They're starting to play the champions that I want to see them play. That's very good. Obviously, JDG can still do that. Let's look at the scoreboards to make sure. Is this not updated yet? I guess it might not be updated. Yeah, it looks like it's not updated. Okay, so I mean, I know that JDG plays the champions that are good in this meta. It's really just betting against the trend. I don't see JDG being the best team in the world for months on end. Right now, they are definitely a good team. They play a good play style in this current patch, but I think other teams are finally catching up on this patch. That might get me in trouble at some point, just continuously betting against JDG, but I think that I'm gonna get paid off eventually. So plus 142. I do like the plus 142. I want to be on Fun Plus Phoenix. I want to continuously go against JDG until I'm right. There are so many cracks in their armor. I just think everyone is blindly picking them at this point. I'm sure that a lot of the people didn't even watch the games from last night, and they're just going to stay on the JDG train, saying that the result is the only thing that matters, and they ended up getting there. So personally, I like Fun Plus Phoenix. If I had to handicap, if I had to guess like the implied win, not the implied win rate, the implied win rate, what the win rate should be, I still think that FPX is a better team than JDG. So I would have to give them like a 55% edge, like 55 to 45. So if it's 55 compared to plus 142, that would be like between plus 142, like between 10 to 15% edge. So I want to be on the FPX side. I don't see JDG beating them 3 games in a row. So unless FPX completely forgets the lessons that they learned in the group stage and about the meta, I think that we'll see a very close series with Fun Plus Phoenix taking the W. Okay, so let's see. Top Esports and Gen G. So in this situation, everybody's going to be on Top Esports. I love Top Esports. I think they're a great team. They are minus 175 and plus 139. I think that they are a little too. I don't love their champion pool. I think that they haven't really shown the ability to consistently play carry junglers and have them actually carry the game. A lot of the time we see them picking Lee Sin and then like winning before it completely falls off, but they're not creating these enormous advantages that you'd really want to see from a Lee Sin team. It's a little bit more macro oriented, and I guess you could theoretically look at that as a good way, seeing that they're still able to pull off these victories without Lee Sin creating like a dominant early game situation. But if they get into a spot where there are some picks that become important to ban away, and they can't continue to ban away Kindred, Nidalee, Graves, and these kinds of carry junglers, then we can get into a spot where they just have very bad matchups, because I expect top esports to just continuously pick Lee Sin. So how would they abuse that? So Genji with Clid has a good enough champion pool that he can go toe to toe with Lee Sin, but that's kind of just playing into top esports' hand. I do need to re-look at the champions from the mid-season cup today. So let me just find that, because that's going to be important. Like, I have a vague idea of the champions, but I want to be certain. Okay, gotta do it the hard way. I need to get the stream.
New Sensodyne relieves sensitivity and improves gum health. So I ran into my ex last.
All right, we'll just wait until the ads are done. Great. Okay, so this is game 2. All right, so this is not exactly what we want. Oh, this is the first part of the tiebreaker. Let's see. Okay, this one's 9 hours. It says it's 9 hours, but it's not 9 hours. Come on now. So we have JDG Genji. All right, now we gotta do it the real hard way. So this is gonna be annoying, but we don't really have a choice. Okay, so game 1, JDG against Genji. We have Zoom, Kanavi, Yagao, Loken, Lumao. So he gets his Ornn again. He gets Trundle. So this is basically the one of the best drafts that you could have for JDG. Ornn is one of Zoom's best champions. Trundle is one of Kanavi's best champions, and that duo has accounted for a lot of their victories. I believe. Oh, I'm thinking of Ornn Rek'Sai. Ornn Rek'Sai. Okay, so Trundle, we have 1. We only have 2 Trundle games with Zoom. It's kind of unexpected. So with this draft, we see it doesn't show us the pick order, but there aren't many great options for Trundle to use his ultimate on. Like, I guess the best would be Nautilus when he has Aftershock procced, but like lining that up is not always possible in a team fight. From a draft perspective, it looks like Gen G definitely outscales JDG, and they played around the dragon. So right now, JDG doesn't seem to be putting a very high priority on dragon. Maybe they just continuously find themselves in losing spots and are willing to give up the dragons. So that's somewhat concerning. Then we have IG against DRX. DRX we have... Oh, well, they're not playing anymore, so who cares? DRX against Gen G. So we have a more early game style team composition from Gen G. We have Silas, Lee Sin, Syndra, Kalista, and Set. And they gave away the Graves. So I don't like them. I don't like seeing them give away Graves. They may feel like they have a specific weakness that they're attacking by putting Piosik on Graves. Maybe they just don't think he's a very good Graves player. But I don't like that idea. I think you're just asking for trouble, basically. Then we have JDG against IG. Renekton. So this is a pretty early game team composition. They have a decent amount of pressure because it's like eventually Nidalee is going to overwhelm you with how much farm she can consume. But it looks like they got ahead even earlier than that. So that is a little bit different. Kanavi on Nidalee is not surprising at all. He plays Graves, he plays Kindred, plays Rek'Sai. Nidalee is a champion that I would assume that he just plays. Somewhat regularly in solo queue and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised by that at all. Then we have Gen G against Invictus Gaming. So Gen G pulls out Gragas Yasuo, which is a very good combination. Aphelios Taric. The Taric is good to see. Rascal on Aurelia against Lucian. So Lucian could theoretically win that matchup pretty hard, but interesting draft by Gen G. Oh, Yasuo just got out of control. Then JDG against DRX. So yeah, this is the game that I think DragonX one of the games that DragonX just made a huge mistake. They have a 4,000 gold lead. They should have been able to kill off JDG and eliminate them from the tournament. So JDG is on borrowed time right now. And then Gen G... So Gen G they played the Kalista better. JDG is consistently giving up Kalista to the other team. So let's think about Kalista. So JDG against FPX. Do we have much Kalista? Bans. That's interesting. I wonder why that's happening. FPX, Kalista. I wonder if Loken is like a very good Kalista player. Maybe every team is trying to like pinch his pool by taking Kalista. So the concerning thing is that many teams appear to not care what the enemy team chooses as their champions, and they just build the same items no matter what. Yeah, he played a ton of Kalista. Okay. Kalista. So I'm not sure who FPX is going to use in the top lane. I would assume it's still Khan. Maybe that's another way that they expect to end up beating JDG is by having a better top lane matchup. Khan has looked pretty good so far. Even in their loss against T1, he was probably the bright spot for their team. Oh my god. So I just looked at Twitter and somebody said they added the Vietnamese tournament to the semifinals for the midseason cup, and that's just crazy. That seems like a horrible decision. Ugh. That's not fun. Okay, so that is an interesting dynamic between JDG and FPX. I think the last time we saw FPX against JDG, it was Zoom versus Gimgu. Now it's Zoom versus Khan. That's better for Fun plus Phoenix. Less of a disadvantage in the top lane. More carry options for FPX. And then it's a question mark about the Kalista. I wonder if they're going to continuously ban out Kalista. Because I do think that LWX and Loken... I don't think that either of them are like the best AD carry in the world, so there's not really an advantage to be gained from there. If you're FPX and you want to potentially split push, Kalista's not a great split pusher, so maybe that's a game state that they try to force. I still like FPX. I think at plus 140 something, it's really much closer to a 50-50, so I want that extra value on FPX. But top esports against Gen.G. My concern with this match is that Gen.G is not going to be able to play the macro game the correct way. One of my problems with Gen.G is that they continuously throw away games against teams like T1, and I think it's because T1 forces the other team into very difficult macro decisions. So I think I do prefer top esports, but the value is almost definitely on Gen.G. So they're basically saying Gen.G against top esports is the same as Fun plus Phoenix against JDG. I think I could see myself just going for both underdogs here, but I don't know if I think top esports against Gen.G is a 50-50. I definitely like FPX more as an underdog. Top esports. Top esports. Yeah, so FPX beat top esports. They used a Senate composition against him last time. And then Gen.G. Gen.G does play Senna. They played it a lot more when it was really broken. I love what Fun plus Phoenix is doing with their drafts. That's exactly what I want to see from Fun plus Phoenix. I'm liking Fun plus Phoenix more and more. Top esports. Corky Syndra Yumi. Okay, so top esports against Gen.G. So in the top lane, 369 against Rascal. I think that's probably 50-50. I think that the public perception will be 369's better than Rascal. 369 did play well against Zoom, so if everybody has a very high opinion of Zoom, and they know that 369 played well against Zoom, then he should have the edge. Genji. But Genji did beat JDG. Okay, so then Clid against Karsa. That's very close. I think that Clid is probably better than Karsa as a player overall. BDD against Knight. Everyone is going to assume that Knight is a significantly better player than BDD. I don't think that's the case. I think it's much closer than the public would think. So there's some additional value there. Jackie Love against Ruler. Jackie Love is probably better than Ruler. And then Yu Yanjia appears to have good synergy with Jackie Love because, I mean, he's been playing almost every single game since Jackie Love came back. Or actually, no, I guess it was mostly Chow Chow. And then in the finals, they went to Yu Yanjia. So there must be something there. Then we have Life. And Life played fine. He wasn't a glaring weakness or anything like that throughout today. So the second match is a lot closer. I love FPX in the first match. That's looking like something that I want to bet on. Top Esports versus Genji. I don't really see a ton of value on either side. I think that if I bet on anybody, it would be Genji to go against public perception. That's basically it. So thanks for watching. Check out the SBR Picks video. Check out DFS Bachelor's channel. I don't know if we're going to do a video for the slate tonight because it's LPL LCK and the Vietnam thing that's going on right now. But you'll have to wait and find out. Talk to you soon. Peace.